Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Craig Miller. I'm the General Manager at Western Municipal Water District. Great to see you all. We've got a great theme, Mission Impossible. So we have a superstar. He's going to solve the water crisis. He's got helicopters, car chases, guns, missiles. He's what we need, right? Not at all. So Tom, no clue about water, but we do have people who know about water. Let's go to the next slide. All right. There they are. I don't remember hair like that when I was 15. But so these are our superstars. These are our crime fighters. These are the terrorism fighters. You can see my panelists up here. Of course, we kept the heroine. We're hoping she shows up because no one wants to listen to three engineers and an economist. So we're saving her a seat. I hope she shows. We're not sure she's going to get there. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about water. Let me set the stage. So the previous panels were talking about financing and big picture Colorado River stuff. Well, this is the panel of solutions. These are the guys that are building projects. So let's talk the state's water. So let's make this a little bit interactive. By show of hands, everybody put your coffee down. Show of hands, how many people think the state needs to invest and build statewide water supply? Anybody? Yeah, this is an issue, right? We need people to come together. So you may have heard me. I've been beating this drum for a while now. We started about 6 months ago with Solve the Water Crisis, and we formed a coalition. So what is the coalition and how did it start? So when water managers get together with other water managers and we go to coffee, we go to lunch, it's very scary when the first thing out of a water manager's mouth is, I'm really worried about how I'm going to serve my customers. I don't know what we're going to do. That's not a conversation that we've ever had before as water managers. We say we're reliable under all circumstances. We will provide for our customers. That conversation has changed. It's we don't know what we're going to do. We have to get our act together. And we know what we're going to do locally. We've been very successful locally. We don't know how we're going to collaborate with the state. So what's the coalition? The coalition is 26 agencies, and it's primarily their general managers committed to join this coalition to educate about the water crisis and the need for water. Just think about how hard it is to get 26 general managers to agree on anything. We can't agree where to go to coffee, right? We can't agree what time lunch is. So this is movement. And the message has spread really fast. This is not a drought. This is a water crisis. We better do something as a state. You've heard how difficult the Colorado River system is. We have solutions for the state. So the state was founded on three sources of water, right? You got your local resources, you got Colorado River water, you got State Water Project. Two of those three do not look good. So what are we going to do? You know, we've got the 5th largest economy in the world, and it was built on the foundation of water from those three sources, and we don't have resilience. How are we going to support that economy? In 2 years, remember 2017, super wet, everything filled, you watched the spillway kind of crumble away at Oroville. It was dry the next year, it was wet the next year. But from 2019 to 2021, the state ran out of water. 2 years of resiliency. That is not what we need as a state. We need a water plan. So today we have great panelists up here who are going to talk to you about 3 elements of a plan. So let's get started. So I'll start upstream.
Sure.
JP, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about your project.
Thanks, Craig. Good morning, everybody. I'm JP Robinette, Engineering and Construction Manager for the Sites Project Authority. In that capacity, I report to a joint powers authority that's made up of local agencies up in the Sacramento watershed. Our project, which you see on this nice mural, is pretty massive, so you kind of have to use a mural instead of a map to put it onto a page. It's a proposed 1.5 million acre foot off-stream reservoir that, if you were to get there, you'd drive an hour and a half north from Sacramento and turn off at a small town called Maxwell. It's just near I-5, about 10 miles off. This project makes smart use of existing conveyance, existing fish screens, existing pump stations, and canals, and we're going to impound a new reservoir. 1.5 million acre feet would be the 7th largest in California. Move the needle on storage. Our investors are very broad. We have state investment, we have federal investment, and then we have 22 participating water agencies from all over California. So that's us.
Thanks, JP. All right, Graham. I've heard that we might build a tunnel. I heard that before. I heard that when I graduated high school, that we were going to build that when I had Tom Cruise's hair. I heard that. What's going on? Tell me about your project.
All right. So, thank you. I'm Graham Bradner, the Executive Director of the BCA, also a JPA, formed by participating public water agencies. Currently 18 contributing funding to the current phase of the program. I, on the other hand, do have a map. I wish I had a much friendlier drawing, but I think with this project, the scale of it, you do have to put it in perspective. So we have, to first kind of set the stage, the existing infrastructure for the State Water Project has intakes in the South Delta. And so those intakes are fed by the surface channels and sloughs through the Delta. Water flows in through Clifton Court Forebay. It's lifted up by the Banks pumping plant into Bethany Reservoir, where it flows downstream from there in the California Aqueduct. So what we'd like to do is build a new set of intakes in the North Delta that would be run in conjunction with the intakes in the South Delta. There would be a new pumping plant in the South Delta for the proposed alternative. I'm showing you now the proposed project. There are multiple alternatives being evaluated in the draft EIR. But the new pumping plant in the South Delta would lift the water independently into Bethany Reservoir. And then there would be 45 miles of tunnel that would connect those intakes in the north to the new pumping plant in the south. But that would convey that water. 6,000 cubic feet per second is the proposed project, and it would convey it in a way that's more resilient to climate change, sea level rise, seismicity. So that's really the overview of the project.
Great, thanks, Graham. Devin, I hear you have a little recycled water project. Tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you, Craig, and good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be here with you. So JP gave you a mural and Graham gave you a map. I'll give you a cartoon here. This is the concept behind what we call the Pure Water Southern California program, as it's branded. It's actually a partnership between my agency, the Metropolitan Water District, and I'm the assistant GM and executive officer there, and the LA County Sanitation District. They're our partner in making this happen. And what you see in the lower left-hand corner of this cartoon is what's known as the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant. It is in the city of Carson, and it is currently a wastewater treatment plant that is actually the largest discharger of treated wastewater to the Pacific Ocean in California right now. So we're partnering with this entity that's operating that facility to take that water, to purify it, and then to provide it to a series of groundwater basins. And then ultimately, what you see in the upper right-hand corner of this graphic is that water making it to the headworks of 2 of our treatment plants. What you don't see in this cartoon is all of Metropolitan's delivery infrastructure that's behind the scenes, so that once that water moves through those treatment plants, it moves out through much of Southern California and becomes drinking water for people throughout Southern California.
Great, Devin. Let's turn it into a discussion and kind of get into some of the issues of the projects. I didn't see on your map, JP, any beavers.
No.
All right, I'm just kidding.
They don't show up at that scale.
It's too big. It wasn't artist rendering, though. You could add. All right, in keeping with our theme, Mission Impossible. These projects have been challenged. Are they impossible? JP, is it impossible to build a dam?
No, it is not impossible to build a dam. It's interesting. The project has been around as an idea for over 50 years. The concept is sound. There's been a lot of great work done to make the project more affordable. The JPA came together in 2019, locals and folks from Southern California and all over, to make the project affordable and make this possible. And so, no, it's not impossible to build a dam. The technology exists.
We've built dams
We've
before.
built them before.
It's not impossible.
There's
Graham?
a guy over there who can do it. I talked to him earlier.
Graham? I've heard of tunnels.
Also not impossible. I don't know if beavers, they might be able to excavate tunnels. I don't know. But no, it's definitely not impossible. This is a large scale project for sure. And it's a challenging setting to build a project of this scale, but it's entirely not impossible. And I think we've been working hard to develop a project that is constructible, but also takes into account some of those challenges.
Yeah.
So,
Devin, I'm pretty sure we have recycled water. Is your project impossible?
Yeah, it's impossible. No, actually, it is an interesting question because there's a bunch of people in this room. I saw Mike Marcus earlier and Shivaji earlier. They may want me to say that it's impossible because that means they've done impossible things, which is pretty incredible. No, it's not impossible. Maybe it's mission difficult. But no, this has been done before. The treatment technology has been proven. They're using this water, or at least they used to on the space shuttle. They use it on the space station. We're capable of doing this here, absolutely.
Yeah, so these concepts are proven. They've built them all over the world. Everyone else has done it. We have the money. We have the technology. So what makes it impossible? Why is it mission impossible, panelists?
So it's a really good question. I'll jump in on that one. I think one of the things that I see is, and this came up, I can't remember if it was the first or the second panel that talked a little bit about the recently released plan by the governor, and we've seen this. Every administration for the last 20 years has weighed in with a new idea or a new plan for how they're going to solve water problems. And none of these plans come with the empowerment of execution. What we see is indications that more storage would help, indications that furthering recycle water through the state of California would help, and these lofty goals that are out there. But they don't come with the imperative, particularly from the state, of making it happen, with that imperative being we're going to streamline the processes to get these projects done. We're going to identify funding to assist the agencies, and we're going to have, frankly, permitting or regulatory paths that clearly prefer these projects so that they're easier to get done. And that's why this is so hard, because it is left to the local agencies to then navigate that with what I believe to be is a little bit less clear direction from the state in terms of making these overarching visions that governors and administrations come out with, not the follow through in terms of helping us to execute isn't there.
Thanks, Devin. Graham, you may have the poster child of Mission Impossible projects. And, 4 years ago, here in Southern California, we thought we had all the momentum to build twin tunnels. So how do you get over Mission Impossible?
Well, I think first, I guess you got to recognize the situation. I mean, this group, I'm sure, is all very familiar with what we're dealing with. But I mean, it's a situation where you've got state water project infrastructure flowing through the same channels and sloughs and canals that are an incredible environmental resource and estuary, incredibly important part of the Pacific Flyway. There's a number of legacy communities that are extremely important within the Delta. So there's just a lot that has to be balanced within that. But I will say back in 2019, when Governor Newsom asked for a fresh look with a single tunnel project, it really turned out to be a pretty big deal for us. It opened the door to a large number of design innovations and engineering and alternatives to the project. So I think based on where we sit now, I think we really have a very solid foundation and a good project that we could deliver.
JP?
Yeah, I think, it's really about timing. And, we have a great partnership. I think that's been the secret ingredient for us is this group of agencies coming together and honestly dealing with each other and being clear about what they need from the project. We try to be very, simple in our communications. We try to define for our members, what do they get? How much does it cost? And how do we pay for it? And as soon as we've sort of gotten to common ground there and kind of agreed that we're going to move forward together, I think it goes from mission impossible to mission critical. It's time to get this done. And so we're kind of at that phase right now, I think, where people are starting to understand there's momentum with the project. There's a tremendous amount of funding in place. And it's going to be about, how do we move forward together? How do we finance this together? And there's a lot of questions embedded in that.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point about mission critical. I think most water managers would say we blew right by mission critical maybe a decade ago. So, JP, had you finished this a decade ago, what would sites be doing for our current water situation?
Well, the short answer is it's up to the participants, because the way we're structured, if you're invested in 50,000 acre feet of storage, you're entitled as an agency to that storage and that share of diversions off the river that we take under our water right. So the short answer is it's up to you if you're an investor. Did you take your water in dry years? Did you hold it there? There's a lot of operations decisions that will come down to the individual participant. We did do some modeling in 2021 when we thought this was as bad as it was going to get. And frankly, it was pretty impressive to see, based on our assumptions, there would have been about 1 million acre feet of water available in that year. We haven't refreshed the model. Assuming some of our participants would have taken some of that water, I'd say we'd have room to store the next flood flow, which will happen. Yeah, not sure when.
What could we do with another 1 million acre feet in the system right now? Right? Graham, you have that tunnel in place? Where would we be?
Right. So I've already heard it talked about quite a bit this morning. I mean, I think what we need within the system, everybody understands this. We need to have a nimble system that can evolve with our changing hydrology, changing snowpack conditions. So having, and there's a lot of analysis regarding water supply effects that's out in the current public draft of environmental impact report for the project. But just to summarize, there would be more water supply on average. Having the set of intakes operating in conjunction, so new intakes in the North Delta, able to take advantage of opportunities, big but infrequent storm events, would end up generating about another 500,000 acre feet of diversion every year on average. And there was also some additional modeling done by DWR looking at just the past year, which was a very dry year. So that gives you the dry year perspective. So we had big rains in October, record-setting precipitation in December. So a pretty brief period of high runoff. But unfortunately, the existing infrastructure in the South Delta could not really take advantage of that just due to constrictions in the channels and operating constraints within the Delta. But had there been the new set of intakes in the North Delta, the system would have been able to pick up just under another 250,000 acre feet delivered. And, this water, about half of it goes to Southern California. So, I mean, these are pretty significant numbers, even in a dry year. And there will certainly be a lot more opportunity in wet years. But that's the way this project is intended to work, is to take advantage of those opportunities.
And it's a huge amount of water. And, that number has been floating around in December, 250,000 acre feet for at Western. So that's a huge amount of water. And, I think for Delta Conveyance, there's the argument that it doesn't create any new water. You hear that from the opponents of the program. And, clearly from your comments, that's not the case. It generates a huge amount of yield.
It does. And you're right. This is all within the state's water right. We've been talking about a 5% allocation. So these are putting a dent in that, nudging it up, but there's still a lot of room there. But the key is that it does take advantage when the system is in excess. That's when it really, that's when the value is really highlighted. And so I think we have to be in position to take advantage of those opportunities when they come, few and far between. We got to be able to move.
Devin, how would recycled water play into Met's portfolio?
Yeah, just hearing the previous two descriptions, I realized that there really is a big difference between these projects and the way they work, and they complement each other. Graham and JP described projects that take advantage of water supply when it's available. And so that may be intermittent, but then they're taking advantage of it when it's available. The project Pure Water SoCal, you're going to base load. You're going to be producing that water day in, day out, 24/7. And so that's the way it's being designed. And when you think about it, it's enough water for 500,000 households. So you've got 500,000 households now with this project online that are getting water from a completely new source. Another way of thinking about it is over a 10-year period, if this thing had been operating over the last 10 years, our storage at Metropolitan that's available to the service area right now would be higher by a little more than 50%. So the storage reserves that we're able to pull on right now are significantly higher. You all know that we're in an emergency situation in our state water project dependent areas. Our board has taken an action to implement pretty dramatic reductions in those service areas for 6 of our member agencies. I asked our staff to go back and say, if the facility had been in place for the last 10 years, where would we be now? And you got to caveat this, it's with perfect knowledge about operations, right? Which is a myth. But we wouldn't have had to declare that emergency. We wouldn't need to be calling for these emergency reductions in the worst drought the state water project has ever seen. That's the kind of difference that a project like this can make. And when you think about the supply that's coming from the project, a portion of that water goes to areas that are currently state water project dependent, and a portion of that water would be going to areas that rely on the Colorado River. It's roughly 2/3, 1/3. So for those state water project areas that are really relying on state water project supply, roughly 2/3 of the benefit of this project is directly going to those areas. So it would be a remarkable improvement in our reliability if we had the project in place now.
Yeah, so, I think about it as an engineer, and you hear all this talk of beaver dams are the solution, but we have engineering solutions. It's not like we're trying to, invent cold fusion for energy. We have sound, fundamental engineering solutions, so we don't have to be in restrictions. There's no reason we're not doing that. The elephant in the room, and Lisa brought it up on the previous panel, is the opposition for the projects. So we as managers are constantly fighting against environmental special interest groups. We're trying to engineer projects to benefit urban, ag, environmental water, and I always look at water managers as environmental stewards, yet we're squaring off against environmental special interest groups. What do we do about that? JP, you want to take a crack at that one first?
Yeah, unless you're asking me not to think as an engineer, which is impossible, but that's mission impossible. But yeah, no, I hear you, and I think part of it does come back to funding. With Prop 1, that really does set aside a block of water in our reservoir that's dedicated to the environment, that's dedicated to Delta smelt benefits, and dedicated to refuge supply. And so there's an asset for the environment. And I think the question is, how do you make the best use of that? And how do you bring those stakeholders to the table to say, how can we, get the most out of this asset that we're going to have now and change the conversation? I think they're sort of forming opposition around things that are, core issues for them. And we want to be part of the solution there and getting them to engage in that and develop that and collaborate on that. I think that's part of the solution.
That's good. Graham?
I'm not aware of any opposition to Delta conveyance. I'm not sure where to go with that. Yeah. I think, yeah, that's right. It's just schedule and funding. It's a difficult project. It's a difficult circumstance. It's a difficult setting, I should say, and as I described before. But I think, we have made a lot of progress. I'm very proud of the work we've done, and I think we have a project now that, it looks like nothing that's ever been proposed for Delta Conveyance. We have a route that really swings to the east. It hugs Interstate 5. It gives us a lot of logistical benefits being close to Interstate 5 and really avoiding the heart of the Delta, where this type of construction would be a lot more difficult and a lot more impactful. We've really kind of interrogated and evaluated every piece of the project to try and reduce effects, reduce impacts. We developed a stakeholder engagement committee through the concept design phase. These are not folks who support the project at all, but understood that there was an opportunity to be part of the process, part of the design process, provide their feedback. It gave us an opportunity to listen and hear from folks who live and work in the Delta about their concerns and make adjustments to the project even before it got into the EIR phase. So there are headwinds for sure, but I think we're in a really good spot.
Well, we're warming up towards questions. So Jeff's going to ask a few questions, or going to solicit questions from the audience. Devin, you want to address that? I know recycled water often is on the other side of the environmental. It's not opposition, it's the choice of the environmental special interest groups. What are your thoughts before we get into questions?
We're really making efforts to get a lot of input as we're developing this program. And there is a lot of support from environmental organizations. That's a real nice thing. But we view this as part of a portfolio. You can't just view it as the development of this project by itself. As an agency, we're involved in developing reliability. And that means that we're going to have this work in conjunction with our storage portfolio, with our Colorado and our state water project supplies. And the challenge in the discussions is support for this project, but advocating for what is ultimately erosion of reliability of these other supplies at the same time. And so our approach is to look at that overall portfolio. We're not in the business of just maintaining. We need to improve our reliability. And so hopefully get buy-in with these groups that a plan that has us committed to this project, but also committing to shoring up reliability of these other systems, it leads to a sustainable condition for us.